He said that the FBI was kept out of the Nancy Guthrie investigation for 4 days. He even had a plane on the ground ready to move the DNA in the night. This is exactly what Patel said. He said, I had an aircraft, I had a fixed wing aircraft ready to move it through the night, and that he wanted to take the DNA to Quantico, but Sheriff Chris Nanos in Pima County said, no, we want to go to our private lab in Florida.
A fixed-wing aircraft sat on an Arizona tarmac for 96 hours with its engine.
A fixed-wing aircraft sat on an Arizona tarmac for 96 hours with its engines idling, but its cargo bay empty. It was a multi-million-dollar federal asset frozen by a single local decision. FBI Director Kash Patel reveals that while his agents were prepared to rush DNA evidence to the world's most advanced lab, the gate to the investigation was locked from the inside. Plane was ready, FBI blocked, is the documented reality of the first 4 days following the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Why would a local sheriff refuse a federal jet during the most critical window of a kidnapping? If the first 48 hours are the lifeblood of a recovery, what does it mean when the first 96 hours are spent in a jurisdictional standoff? Is it possible the delay was not a bureaucratic error, but a strategic move to keep the Bureau's elite forensic eyes off the scene until the trail was cold? This is no longer just a missing persons case. It is an exposure of institutional friction that may have cost a life. We are diving into the logs of a grounded flight and the diverted path of forensic music evidence that was sent to Florida instead of Quantico. The story you have been told is only the surface. What music lies beneath was never meant to be documented. The timeline of the 96-hour blackout begins at 3:02 a.m. on February 2nd, 2026. Music, this is the moment the Nest doorbell camera captures a figure on the Guthrie porch. Within hours, the FBI offers the full weight of its scientific analysis section. By 12:00 p.m. that same day, Music Kash Patel has a specialized aircraft on standby. Yet, for 4 days, that aircraft never received clearance to transport evidence music from Pima County. Look carefully at the background of the 3:02 a.m. timestamp in the footage released music publicly. While every eye was fixed on the foreground suspect, a secondary shadow moves near the edge of the desert brush, ignored by the initial local sweep. Music, this detail suggests a coordinated team was present. However, because the FBI was kept out for 4 music days, the forensic integrity of the perimeter was handled by a local department that initially insisted Nancy Guthrie had a music simply walked away. By February 4th, 2026, the standoff reaches a music breaking point. While the FBI mobilizes hundreds of agents, they are restricted to a support role music only. They are not allowed to touch the primary evidence. The fixed-wing aircraft remains on the tarmac, costing the investigation 96 hours of elite forensic lead time. This is the liar's lens, a public narrative of cooperation that masks music, a private reality of total federal exclusion. Kash Patel, the FBI director, is the primary whistleblower in this music institutional rift. Kash Patel is the one who documented the 4-day lockout, describing it as a direct hindrance to federal capabilities. Kash Patel represents the gold standard of forensics music that was intentionally bypassed by Pima County leadership. Chris Nanos, the Pima County sheriff, is the figure who held the keys to the gate. Chris Nanos is defined by a fierce jurisdictional independence that many experts call a liability. There is a timeline that does not align between the public claims of Chris Nanos and the internal logs of Kash Patel being denied entry. The decision of Chris Nanos to bypass Quantico for a private lab in Florida remains the single music most suspicious choice in the forensic chain. Savannah Guthrie, the daughter and face of the family's grief, exists in a state of forced music silence. As an NBC anchor, Savannah Guthrie understands the power of information, yet her recent withdrawal from the public eye is telling. Does Savannah Guthrie know that the FBI was blocked by the very men she trusted to find her mother? The unexplained absence of Savannah Guthrie from Tucson press conferences suggests a deeper realization that the local investigation had failed her in the first 96 hours. The official logs of the Pima County Sheriff's Department claimed that the FBI was notified without delay. However, music federal timestamp logs show that the team of Kash Patel was not granted active status until February 6, 2026. The data suggests a discrepancy music that cannot be ignored. Kash Patel, FBI Director. This 4-day digital gap represents a total loss of federal surveillance power during the most critical phase. In forensic science, the first 48 hours are for the victim. The next 48 music hours are for the evidence. By blocking the FBI for 96 hours, Puma County effectively erased both. This is the Music grounded DNA scandal, a jurisdictional ego that potentially turned a rescue mission, Music, into a recovery mission. Verified shipping records show that a rootless hair sample was not sent to a lab until February 10, 2026. Music, instead of using the jet of Kash Patel to fly it to Quantico in 2 hours, it was sent via a private courier to Florida. The data suggests a discrepancy that cannot be ignored. Maureen Unal, retired FBI agent. The hair of Nancy Guthrie was handled with a casualness that borders on forensic negligence. Dr. Gary Brucato, Music, a criminal profiler with over 20 years of experience, focuses on the wait and see tactic used by the abductors. Dr. Gary Brucato notes that the suspect on camera was performative, Music acting as a distraction. This is the chef and the waiter dynamic. The waiter was on camera, the chef for Music was managing the clock. Dr. Burgess, a forensic consultant and professor with 50 Music years of experience, suggests that choosing a private facility over a federal one is a classic move to control the flow of information. Music, in the view of Dr. Burgess, the 4-day blockout suggests the investigation was managed as a public relations issue rather Music than a kidnapping. Jim Fitzgerald, a retired FBI supervisory special agent, believes the man on the porch was a disposable asset who likely did not survive the first week. If Kash Patel had been allowed in on day 1, they could have tracked this asset. By day 4, the asset was likely eliminated, severing the link to the puppet master. The distance between the home of Nancy Guthrie and the nearest FBI field office is exactly 12 miles. Yet, it took 96 hours for federal investigators to secure a seat at the Music table. In the Tucson desert, the 96-hour gap provided enough time for a suspect to reach the Mexican border just 68 miles away. Over 80 times, the estate of Nancy Guthrie is nestled in a dark sky zone where the lack of street music lights creates total nocturnal cover. The path taken by the abductors avoids the primary traffic cameras of Chris Nanos. Why did the signal go dark for 14 minutes in the Santa Catalina foothills? Not one official source, Music, has addressed that question. The dark zone in the hills is a 1.5-mile stretch of road where forensic logs show the abductor's vehicle, Music, likely stopped for 14 minutes. A federal cell site simulator could have pinpointed this stop on day 1. Instead, because the FBI was grounded, this location was not searched until day 9. The missing 14 minutes are where the puppet master likely transferred Nancy Guthrie, Music, to a second untracked vehicle. Every thread connects here. The grounded jet, the diverted DNA, Music, and the missing 14 minutes in the dark zone. The 4-day delay was the ultimate gift to the puppet master. Music, it provided the time needed to eliminate the waiter on the porch and move Nancy Guthrie into a secondary location that was never under federal Music surveillance. This was not a failure of law enforcement. It was a success of criminal management. Music, we have just confirmed that the office of Chris Nanos has still not released the full unedited logs of the night in Music question. If you want every update on Nancy Guthrie, subscribe and hit that bell icon because in Music, this story is far from over. The evidence is now in your hands. Mainstream narratives consistently, Music, miss these details. You have now seen what most people following Nancy Guthrie will never see. We have been given an official version of this story, but 5 separate pieces of documented evidence point in an entirely different direction. We are told to trust the process. But when the process bypasses the world's best forensic lab, Quantico, for a Music private facility in Florida, the process is no longer about justice. It's about control. Music, Kash Patel documented the lockout. Chris Nanos held the keys. And Nancy Guthrie paid the price, Music, in time. The clock didn't run out. It was stopped. After everything you have just seen and heard, every time stamp, every gap, every question with no answer, one Music word only, exposed or buried, let the comments speak for themselves. If this video made you see the story of Nancy Guthrie differently, hit subscribe and smash that bell icon so you are the first to know when the next chapter drops. She was there, then she wasn't.